This program was previously recorded. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Porter County Perspective. I'm your host, Rhea Kashup of the WDSO News Department. And this week, my guest is Danielle Adams, Director of the LaPorte County Historical Society Museum located in LaPorte, Indiana. Welcome to the show, Danielle, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. First, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Okay, so I was born and raised in LaPorte County. I was in a little town called Union Mills. You know about South Central Junior Senior High School. That's where I went to school. I got my master's degree in museum studies from Johns Hopkins, and I've been working at the LaPorte County Historical Society Museum for about 4.5 years.
Sounds great. And have you always loved history, and how did you come to find yourself working for the Historical Society?
Oh my goodness. So my mother always took me to all kinds of museums. We never had like a restful, chill vacation on the beach. It was always, we're going to the state capitol and we're going to look at 10 museums before the end of the day. So she really spurred on my love of history. And I actually remember my first visit to the LaPorte County Historical Society Museum was in 3rd grade. And ever since then, I've always brought people there for my whole life. And after I graduated with my undergraduate degree, my mom pointed out that they were hiring for an assistant director. And she's like, you should really apply. And I said, of course, Mom, of course I will. And so I got the job, and then I moved up to director, and it was really just a fabulous series of coincidences that I got to work here.
Yeah, sounds interesting. And how long has the LaPorte County Historical Society been around, and can you tell us some of its history?
Yes, so we were founded in 1906. A group of historians in the area thought that it was imperative that we begin saving some of the history of LaPorte County. The first white settlers arrived in 1829, and so it had been a while since people had been permanently settled there in LaPorte, and the folks thought that it was imperative that we preserve that history. So we've been around for quite a while. We were in 5 different locations. We eventually settled at the LaPorte County Historical Society Museum you know today, perhaps, 2405 Indiana Avenue. We moved there on our 100th birthday. And we've been collecting since 1906, so we have over 200,000 artifacts in the collection.
That's a lot. And what were some of the first objects on display at the museum, and are they still available to view?
Yes. So at the turn of the century, it was really common for libraries to have like taxidermied creatures as part of their collection. Mm-hmm. So instead of just reading books about maybe a bird, you'd be able to actually see a taxidermied specimen of that bird to study in real life. And eventually that became a little less fashionable. So some of the earliest things that were donated to the museum were those taxidermied specimens from the earliest LaPorte library collection. And a lot of them are still on display. There's like an alligator that is still on display. It's not very large, but that was donated around 1906. And a lot of the earliest things were archival records that people who formed the society donated. So like old bills from businesses that don't exist anymore and things like that. And we do, of course, still have all of that in the collection.
Got it. And where is the museum currently located, and is it open to the public?
Yes, so we are at 2405 Indiana Avenue in LaPorte. Indiana Ave is being, I don't know if renovated is the right term, but it's being worked upon. And we are still open even though Indiana Ave is closed at certain junctures. So there's a little detour you've got to follow. But yeah, we're still open to the public. We just got our elevator fixed. So we're excited to see all kinds of folks coming into the museum.
Sounds great. And how much is admission to the museum, and is there a membership opportunity?
Yes, so admission is $5 for adults, $4 for seniors. If you're under 18, you get in for free. We do have memberships. So memberships for a single folk is $20 for the year. You get into the museum for free. And you get into a lot of our other events for free. So, for example, we have historical society meetings. Those are open to the public. But usually it's the members who attend. We had a couple of cemetery tours this year. You get into those for free. And there's a lot of like discounted things for members.
Sounds really interesting. And what else can you tell us about the museum staff, and who else deserves special recognition for their contributions to the museum?
Yes, so we're a pretty small staff. There's only 3 folks that work there. My assistant director, Savannah Jackson, is really fabulous. So if you look at our Facebook, we have things in the newspaper every day. She runs all of that. She takes care of all of our amazing volunteers. We've got a really dedicated base of volunteers at the museum that help us organize things and make it available to researchers. And then our collections manager is JC Dare. She is the one that you will meet if you want to donate something to the museum. So she takes care of all of our donations. The board president, Tom Konechny, he is at the museum almost every day, really dedicated to helping preserve LaPorte County history. And then all of our board is really fabulous. We also have the county historian, Bruce Johnson. He's there in the afternoon every day. He's just a wealth of knowledge, and also my 4th grade teacher, but a wealth of knowledge about the history of LaPorte County. So if anyone ever comes in with a question about something, I'm like, let me go get Bruce for you, and he'll be able to tell you right away.
Sounds great. And are there any volunteer opportunities at the museum, and how can one apply if they were interested?
Yes. So we are always looking for help. We are actually doing scheduled inventories of the collection. We have 200,000 artifacts, and it is about as difficult as you would imagine to keep track of 200,000 things. So we're doing inventories to make sure that things are in good shape, where they say they are in our collections management system. So we have folks helping us with that. So that's a super fun job. I wish I could do it every day. You get to go through some of the boxes, the drawers, etc., and pull out the artifacts, check them out, make sure they're in good shape, and write down where they are so we can double check with our system. We also have volunteers that help us with the archive. So we just recently got a huge donation from the Michigan City News Dispatch of articles and things that need to be filed and taken care of. So that's another huge job that we have going on, filing and taking care of these new newspaper articles that came in. There's a section on our website that you can go to apply to be a volunteer, and we always love help, especially if you're super organized.
Got it. And besides the displayed objects, does the Historical Society offer any other services to the public?
Yes. So we house a lot of really great genealogical resources at the museum. So if you're trying to figure out, like, who was my great Aunt Ethel, we probably have something about great Aunt Ethel at the museum that we could help you figure out. A lot of the other services we offer are for, like, teachers. So in the Indiana State curriculum, 3rd graders have to learn about local history, and coming to the museum is a really great way to be able to fulfill that. And our county historian, Bruce Johnson, does a lot of really great work with the public, he writes articles every month to educate people about certain things, like the Heinz Pickle Factory that was located in LaPorte. So he does a lot of research, especially like house research, or if I just bought this building on Lincoln Way, I want to know what the history was. That's another service we offer. And we're also just like a wealth of information about the history of LaPorte County.
Good stuff. And about how many historically significant artifacts are housed at the museum?
So we have 200,000 cataloged artifacts, but that does not include all of the books in our research library, and it does not include everything we hold in our archival holdings. So it's way over 200,000.
That's a lot.
Yes.
And can you tell us the backstories, some that you find most interesting or your favorites?
Oh my gosh. My favorites are the ones that look like animals. So there's this little pin cushion from like the 1870s, 1880s that looks like a little cat. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. There's this really sweet little tea set, like a cream and sugar set that looks like a strawberry, very cottagecore. I really enjoy that one. We have this this very unfortunate taxidermy of a weasel.
Oh.
One of the earliest things donated to the collection. So we can't have it out on display because turn of the century they used a lot of really harmful chemicals to do taxidermy. And the weasel, who I have affectionately dubbed Smeef, does not look like he is in the best shape. So he has to rest in a drawer. But I will pull him out for special occasions. I love him. He's from the library collection, and he has seen better days. But I love him nonetheless.
Poor Smeef.
I know, poor Smeef.
Poor guy. And what are some of the most popular artifacts, and why do you feel they attract such attention?
People really like the W.A. Jones collection of ancient weapons. That's one of the largest collections we have at the museum. And I think it's quite unique because many other weapons collections in the United States aren't as diverse as ours. So W.A. Jones would travel the world and collect, instead of like sending home a postcard, he would bring home unique arms from around the world. And so our collection is really diverse. In the countries represented within it. So a lot of people come to see that. They'll come in and say, like, where's the gun collection? So that's one of the biggest ones. People also really love the cars. We have one that is, we have a Tucker, which is one of 50 that were ever created, and I think only 47 or 48 are still around.
Oh, wow.
People will come in and see that, and then the DeLorean is a huge draw. People love to see the DeLorean.
Got it. And can you tell us some of the permanent exhibits at the LaPorte County Historical Society Museum, and what should visitors pay special attention to when visiting them?
People really, really enjoy the period rooms. I remember the period rooms when I visited in 3rd grade. And it's just a fun little way to look, like a window into the past. And there's a lot of interesting things. So when you look into, it's like looking into someone's living room. You can kind of get like overloaded. But pick a couple of things to look at and really study, and I think you can learn a lot about it, especially in the Victorian dining room. We have a couple of Victorian hair wreaths on display, which was like a Victorian mourning thing that they would do. They would weave hair into beautiful flowers and put them into these wreaths. You can't miss them. One of them's right up front and center. That's really interesting. And there's a couple of things highlighted in each room on the little panels that you can read that I think are really interesting. We also have an audio tour in English and Spanish. So if you want to have a little bit more directive of where to look in the room to see, like, this belonged to this person and this is this, you can always scan the QR code and do the audio tour as well.
Sounds great. And can you tell us more about the Kessling Automobile Collection, and how did it come to be housed at the Historical Society?
Right. So the building we're in now was built in 93, opened in 94 as the Door Prairie Auto Museum. Dr. Peter Kessling built the museum to house his cars. He had over 60 when he opened it as an auto museum in 1994. And eventually he sold the building to the county, which is when we moved in 2006. And when he was paid the sum for the building, he did not keep it. He instead added a 3-story addition onto the back of the building so that he would be able to house his cars and give us more display space. So the cars, most of them didn't leave from 1993. So we have about 40 vehicles in the collection today. We're actually adding 2 new ones this year. And so if you want to see the Kessling Auto Collection, most of it is up on the 2nd floor, along with the Kessling Associates offices. So yeah, they came in 1994 and they have stayed ever since.
Do you have a favorite automobile that's on display right now?
I do. It's on Main Street. It's the 1948 Playboy, and I like it especially because it is so small it looks like I could pick it up.
Sounds fancy. So. Yeah. Tiny cars are always like...
I know.
It's like, it's just something about them.
Well, and then there's
nice.
this huge one. It's it's an early 1900s. It's a Mitchell,
Oh,
and it
wow.
looks like if you had like a PNG of a normal vehicle and then increased it by 125%.
Oh, wow.
It just looks like a little too big. It's kind of uncanny. I really like that one too.
Yeah. That sounds really interesting, actually. And we hear the museum hosts an exhibit about Belle Gunness, notorious serial killer who put down roots in LaPorte. What can you tell us about her, and what artifacts from her life are on display?
Right, so she is one of the largest draws for people to come into the museum. We have folks come from all across the country to see this exhibit, including descendants of some of the unfortunate men who perished at her hand. A couple of times a year we get descendants of these men that come to see the exhibit. So she's a Norwegian lady. She moved to Chicago. Her first husband died mysteriously, and then she eventually moved out here to LaPorte. Her second husband died mysteriously. Peter died mysteriously in LaPorte, and then she started putting out these kind of lonely hearts ads into Norwegian newspapers around the Midwest, saying that she has this farm and it would be great if you would come and help her, raise the animals and tend to the crops. And these men would come to LaPorte in droves and then would never be heard from again. And they were always instructed to, don't tell anyone where you're going. So just by the nature of the way that she operated, a lot of these men's families had no idea, where their uncle, their dad, their brother had gone. And it's terribly unfortunate that it happened in LaPorte. And you think about all of these people who lost their loved ones, and it's a shame that it happened here in LaPorte County. But there aren't too many artifacts from her life because in 1908 she burned her house down in order to kind of escape blame. There was a woman's head or a woman's body that was found in the ashes of her home in 1908, but it was missing a head, so there wasn't any surefire way to identify that it was Belle Gunness. So most people think that she got away and continued her life of crime somewhere else in the United States. So most of the things in her home were destroyed. We do have, after it became a crime scene, they started discovering bodies on the farm. People from all across the United States came to LaPorte to see if they could identify maybe, like, oh, that's Uncle Olaf. Mm-hmm. And they would carve their names into the outbuildings on her farm. So we actually have one of the walls of one of her outbuildings on the farm, and you can see like hundreds of names that people have carved in there, like I'm from Missoula and I'm from Kansas. And so that's that's the largest artifact we have. But we also have the gun that Sheriff Smutzer had when he was sluicing through the ashes and digging the holes to find the bodies. We have a couple of things that people found in the remains of the fire. And then in 2008, the body of the woman who was supposedly Belle Gunness was actually exhumed to see if we could do DNA testing and see if maybe this was Belle Gunness or was not Belle Gunness. And so we actually have pieces from the original like horsehair lined coffin of the woman who is purported to be Belle.
It sounds pretty scary though.
Yeah, it is. We also have her her wheelbarrow that she would use to bring the bodies out for burial, and it's very frightening. Yeah, it is. It's interesting to have this as a piece of history, and it's worth preserving, but it's a very sad story.
Yeah.
And it deserves to be told. We're actually redoing the exhibit, and we're adding a panel about all of the people that she not necessarily is documented from having murdered, because a lot of the men were unidentified, but people that said, like, oh, I'm leaving to go to a farm in LaPorte. So we have a list of, like, double digits, many, many names, dozens of them, to kind of preserve the memory of the people that she extinguished their lives.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And what is the current traveling exhibit? Who put it together, and why is it special?
Right, so we have one about the World War. So Indiana Historical Society puts out these traveling exhibits, and they're really, really fabulous. So they rent them, or they don't rent them, they send them out to different historical societies. Libraries can gain access to them, and you can get a couple of them a year. And the idea is that you have these big, like, whole Indiana exhibits that they bring out to you, and then you're able to supplement them with your own collection. So right now, I believe it's the Second World War, and it's just how Indiana contributed, what Hoosiers were doing during the Second World War, and things like that. So Indiana Historical Society has a really great collection of traveling exhibits that you can have at your institution.
Mm-hmm. And how long will that exhibit be on display?
So that is until the later half of November, so you've still got plenty of time to come and see it.
Mm-hmm. And does the museum have any upcoming or current events or temporary exhibits you're excited about?
Well, we do. In addition to the Indiana Historical Society exhibits, we also have pop-up exhibits that we do. So right now we have one about advertising ephemera, which I think is so fun. We have, oftentimes the only thing that we will have from an old business is like a snippet of an ad that they had, and that's like their whole presence in the collection. So I'm pulling out a lot of these smaller artifacts that don't often get to see the light of day, and putting those on display, which I think is really fun. Plus, I just love advertisements, so I really enjoyed putting that exhibit together. We have actually a historical society meeting tonight. We're going to talk about Victorian mourning, which is why hair wreaths are at the top of my mind here. Mm. We have historical society meetings every 6 months out of the year, and it is the third Tuesday of the month. We also doing a trick-or-treat on Saturday for kids, so that's super fun. We get a bunch of time travelers. They come to the museum, and they tell you about like their customs, like what was trick-or-treat like in 1860, and stuff like that. So we got a couple of spookier events coming up.
Mm-hmm. And what have been some of your favorite temporary exhibits the museum has hosted in the past?
One of my favorites was, I think it's called Indiana Through the Map Maker's Lens. So it talks about cartography and interesting ways of mapping the state of Indiana. And that was really fun for me because we got to pull a lot of our historic maps out of the archives and put those on display, because oftentimes the maps don't get the love that they need, the light that they need for display. So it was really fun to pull out a map from like 1870 of LaPorte County and see how different it is today. And then one of the favorite ones that I've done was pets of LaPorte County. So I researched a bunch of relevant animals in the history of LaPorte County, which was really fun. And then the museum staffs got their pets to be in the exhibit too, which was just fun to see my cats in a museum exhibit. So we talked about like Catherine Barker of the Barker Mansion. She had a French, I don't know if it's a French bulldog or a bull terrier named Tango. Belle Gunnis had a dog. He was like a border collie named Prince. A couple of like old news articles about mischievous cats and things. The first humane society and stuff like that. That was a super fun exhibit to do.
That sounds like fun. And can you tell us the process of how temporary exhibits come together?
Right. So when we get an Indiana Historical Society exhibit, it's usually pretty clear what's going to be on display from our collection along with it, because it already has this through line. So when it was Indiana Map Makers Lens, then obviously we're putting maps out on display. But oftentimes it's, when I do temporary exhibits, it's what do I find when I'm doing other exhibits that I wish I could put on display. So when I was looking through some of the drawers doing an inventory, I found this box of like dog treats that we had, and I was like, we should do a pet exhibit. So it's really inspired by the collection itself. It's inspired from within the collection.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us again where the museum is located, its hours, and how those interested can learn more about the museum and any upcoming attractions and events?
Yes, so we're at 2405 Indiana Avenue in LaPorte. We're open 10 to 4:30 Tuesday to Saturday. If you want to go to our website, it's laportecountyhistory.org. We have a calendar and pop-ups that will show you events, but our Facebook is really the best place to keep up to date with everything that's happening. If you'd like to become a member, you'll get like member emails and things. So we have newsletters that go out quarterly, and you'll gain access to those if you become a member. But really check out our Facebook. It's the best place to find out exactly what's going on at any given time.
Got it. And is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the LaPorte County Historical Society Museum before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, I think local history museums are really special in that there's usually something for everyone. If you don't like cars, then you're not going to go to the car museum. But if you are interested in anything historical, then of course you can go to the local history museum and find something that relates to you, or like my grandma had that, or I remember Great Aunt Ethel telling me about these things. And so I think local history is something really unique in that way, that even if you are not from LaPorte County, you will find things in the museum that you find interesting or something that you relate to, which I think makes it a really special place.
All right, and that is going to wrap things up for this week's edition of Porter County Perspective. I'd like to thank Daniel Adams of the LaPorte County Historical Society Museum for joining me today. This has been WDSO's News Director, Rhea Kashyap, signing off.